Have you ever felt like whenever you are single, you are absolutely thriving? You're on top of your fitness, you're drinking your water, you're on top of your skincare routine, you're hanging out with your friends, you're killing it at work. The list goes on. But the moment you get into a relationship, you turn into somebody that you don't recognize. You turn into an anxious, emotionally dependent mess. And you often ask yourself, is it even possible to be in a relationship where I don't lose myself? I am here to tell you that yes, it is possible. And the key to that is by developing emotional independence. And so that is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about what it is, why it's important, how to develop it, and then we're actually going to go into some actual strategies that you can start implementing today to ensure that you never lose yourself again. Hi, my name is Ale. I am a dating strategist and women's coach. So let's begin with what emotional independence is. Emotional independence is not about pretending your emotions don't exist or avoiding them altogether. That is emotional avoidance. Emotional independence is the ability to regulate your emotions and meet your emotional needs without relying on external validation or specific outcomes. And I want you to think of your emotions as energy in motion, because that is how Dr. Joe Dispenza describes it, and I absolutely love that definition, because your energy is finite, okay? And it is precious, like money in the bank. And so emotional independence is simply being able to generate and manage your own emotional energy so you're not operating in emotional overdraft and relying on others. Because when you are emotionally independent, that is when you are going to be able to take your power back and you are going to become the most magnetic version of yourself, because you are detached and you allow situations to unfold the way they are meant to. Now, why is emotional independence important? I want you to imagine being financially dependent on one person, one job, and one source of income. That makes you vulnerable. When you think of a person who is financially independent, you think of millionaires, and the average millionaire has 7 sources of income. And I want you to think of emotional independence the same way. It's all about diversifying your sources of emotional regulation and fulfillment. So regardless of what happens, you know you're going to be okay because you have developed your emotional regulation skills to handle the winters of life. When you are emotionally independent, you are able to walk away from situations and relationships that are no longer serving you. And you are able to walk away sooner because it's not as scary. Because when you are emotionally dependent on a person, you will often put up with more than you ever thought you would. I know that you have been in a relationship before where you put up with nonsense, and after you got out of that relationship, you thought to yourself, I can't believe I ever tolerated that. And oftentimes, that is a symptom of emotional dependence. And I don't want you to feel bad about this, because this is a learned behavior, okay? Oftentimes, emotional dependence is a symptom of a scarcity mindset. Maybe you grew up in a home where love was scarce, and you became accustomed to breadcrumbs and imagining love that did not exist. And now as an adult, you think to yourself, if I just cater to the moods of this emotionally unavailable person, then I will be able to feast on their brief moments of emotional availability and I'll be fine. Absolutely not. You cannot build a cake out of breadcrumbs. And I really want you to think about that. By developing your emotional regulation skills and cultivating your emotional independence, that is what is going to allow you to break these patterns that seem to persist in your life. Dysregulated nervous system is always going to choose a familiar hell versus an unfamiliar heaven. And so by developing your emotional regulation skills and becoming diversified, that is what is going to allow you to stay regulated. And that is the overarching goal. I want you to feel comfortable with yourself. I want you to feel safe within your body, because the more safe you feel by yourself, the more picky you're going to be when it comes to choosing people that you surround yourself with, whether that's friendships, relationships, even family. Now let's discuss why emotional independence makes you so magnetic and so attractive. Wanting nothing gives you everything. And I want you to remember this mantra. The more you do for yourself, the more others want to do for you. Because when you are emotionally dependent, you will put up with anything. You'll hang out with people, and even though you wonder if they're really happy for you when you bring them good news, you'll keep them around because it's better than being alone. But when you are emotionally independent, you feel comfortable being alone, and you understand what a privilege it is for somebody to have you in their life. And it's through moving with that kind of certainty, with that kind of confidence, with that kind of air of, I am 110% that bitch, so you better come correct. And if you are going to be in my life, you better bring something because you can't just show up. Having that kind of confidence is incredibly magnetic, because that is what shows other people that you are secure within yourself. Because it is ultimately the attitude you have about yourself that another person is going to adopt. People want to be with people who respect themselves. People want to be with people who have high self-esteem, because I want you to remember, your partner is a reflection of you. Your partner is the co-founder to your personal brand. And so when you have a very healthy relationship within yourself, you have a very healthy emotional world, that is what's communicating with other people that, damn, okay, this woman has something of value. I can't just bring her any kind of nonsense and expect that she is going to give me her time. Emotional independence also builds trust with other people, because when other people look at you and they see that you take really good care of yourself, that is what's going to signal to them that, wow, if she ends up being my partner, or if she ends up being my friend, I know that she's going to also take very good care of me. And they will know that the reason why they are in your life is because you want them there, not because you need them. And I don't care who you are. I want you to think about the people that you are most attracted to, the people that you had a very hard time getting over. They are often people that were emotionally independent, people that wanted you, not people that needed you. Now let's talk about what you are going to do to cultivate your emotional independence. If you go to Spotify right now and you type in The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest, this is an incredible audiobook. It is 6 hours, and I know what you're going to say, Ellie, I don't read. Why do you feel comfortable saying that out loud? You know, you work out for 30 minutes a day, you walk your dog for 30 minutes a day, you finish the audiobook in 12 days. And I have created a free 15-page PDF with self-reflection questions for each chapter. And the reason why I love this book so much is this was the first book I read on my healing journey after I called off my engagement. It gives you so much insight into your emotions, learning what your emotions mean, learning how to overcome your self-sabotaging behaviors so you can become the baddest bitch alive. I can't say enough good things about this book. So if you have Spotify, I want you to listen to this audiobook because it's incredible, and I want you to grab the free PDF that's going to be in the description of this video. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's in the YouTube description. If you're listening to this on the podcast, it's going to be in the podcast show notes. You're welcome. Also, if you want to learn more about emotional regulation, I actually created a series on this on Instagram and TikTok last year. It's called the Becoming Unrecognizable series, and this series went absolutely mega viral. And I have uploaded this to my YouTube channel, and I've made an entire playlist. And so if you want to learn more, just watch the playlist and take notes. Now, the third resource that I'm going to tell you about is the Emotional Mastery Workbook. I talk about this all the time on Instagram, on TikTok. I mention this in my YouTube videos. This is what my clients use. And this is the workbook that I use every single day that helps me stay emotionally regulated on a daily basis so that I can continue to perform at my absolute best and achieve all my goals. And so I'm going to have that also linked in the description. Now, the last resource that I'm going to talk about is going to be a free PDF, and it's going to go hand in hand with this video. And now let's begin. The first thing that you are going to do is you are going to do an emotional audit, okay? You know how people say that if you want to improve your finances, you need to track where your money is going? Well, I say that if you want to improve your emotional independence, I want you to pay attention to where all of your emotional energy is going. And I'm going to give you some journal prompts so that you can reflect and figure out the areas where you might see some patterns repeating and some areas in your life where you may have become emotionally dependent. Take out a piece of paper or download the free PDF that's going to be in the description and answer these questions. What specific events or situations have consumed the most of your emotional energy? Who or what triggers your strongest emotional reactions and why? Are there recurring patterns in your emotions, such as feeling drained, anxious, or overly dependent? When do you feel most at peace, and what contributes to that feeling? How often do you prioritize your own needs versus prioritizing others? The next thing that you are going to do is you are going to identify your unhealthy coping mechanisms. Coping mechanisms are like languages, okay? These are often things that you developed as a child as a means to survive. Very much like you learning English as a child so that you can communicate and survive and get your needs met. Your unhealthy coping mechanisms are very much the same. You learned to fall back on these coping mechanisms when you became emotionally overwhelmed. This could look like emotional eating, smoking, drinking, withdrawing, dissociating, maladaptive daydreaming. I just want you to make a list of the things that you do when you are emotionally overwhelmed. I want you to think of the last 3 to 6 months, okay? I want you to use that time frame and think about some of the most stressful things that you experienced. And I want you to list out the things that you did in response to those situations. The reason why I'm asking you to do this is because I want you to recognize what your current coping mechanisms are, because that is the first step to improving them. Now, the third thing that you are going to do is you are going to identify sources of emotional regulation and fulfillment. What are the things that make you super happy, super excited, that make you feel alive? I want you to list out as many activities as possible. At the very minimum, 10. And like I mentioned before, a financially independent person is diversified. The average millionaire has 7 sources of income. And so I want you to think of an emotionally independent person the same way. They are diversified. And you are going to use these activities to diversify your sources of emotional regulation and fulfillment, because that is what is going to help keep you emotionally stable and help you handle the winters of life. The next thing that you are going to do is you are going to build strong habits around the core 4, meaning sleep, food, exercise, and vices. If you develop strong habits around these 4 areas of your life, now that is a recipe to be emotionally regulated and emotionally stable without even really having to try. I want you to think about this the same way you would when it comes to taking care of your hair. I am certain that there are things that you do right now to take care of your hair that to you seem small because they've been a part of your daily routine, your weekly routine for years, like combing your hair with a wide tooth comb and combing from the bottom to the top, to using a leave-in conditioner, to using a deep conditioner, to oiling your hair at night, like using a heat protectant and using quality hot tools. Those things all compound, and I am certain that those all contribute to the health of your hair. Now, taking care of the core 4 is very similar. These are all small things that you can do on a daily basis, that if you build habits around them right now, a year from now, 2 years from now, they're going to seem so small, but they're going to make a massive difference when it comes to your emotional health, your emotional stability, and overall how you feel when things don't go your way, when you get emotionally dysregulated, etc. Now, the last thing that you are going to do is you are going to improve the relationship you have with your emotional self. Now that you are clear on what your unhealthy coping mechanisms are, now that you are clear on your sources of emotional fulfillment, it's time to put that all together. I want you to put aside 10 to 20 minutes every single day to connect with yourself. Schedule in some of these activities. They might seem small, but I promise you, it is the small things that make the biggest difference. I want you to think about it like stretching. You know how when you want to do the splits, you have to commit to stretching a little bit every single day? Well, if you want to be emotionally independent, you have to work on your emotional regulation skills every single day. That's where the Emotional Mastery Workbook comes in. That's where all these other sources come in. A free way to connect with yourself every single day. A free way to practice your emotional regulation skills. A free way to become the best version of yourself and really get to know yourself is to journal. And I know what you're going to say. Oh my God, everybody always... It is true, okay? It is true. I brought my journals. These are my journals over the last few years. It is the thing that has literally, look, okay? I'm not just blowing smoke up my ass. You can't afford anything else. I don't know what your financial situation is. Please start journaling, because I promise you, not only are you going to stop oversharing, but you are going to become way more connected with yourself, because you have a better idea of what your mindset is. You have a better idea of the continuous thoughts you have on a daily basis. You are going to have a better idea of what your inner narrative is. And the reason why I have developed such a strong relationship with myself is because when I was starting over and I didn't have any money, I journaled. My journals are truly the most precious thing to me. If there was a fire, I would grab my journals. Over anything else, I would grab my journals. It is also the one thing that I have done every single day that helps me stay emotionally regulated, that helps me stay emotionally independent. And the most important thing that I will say that journaling has brought to my life is it allows me to figure out when I am getting sidetracked. Because I know that if I'm not journaling, I'm starting to slack off. I'm not tending to the relationship I have with myself. Because I want to ask you something. How often do you journal when things are going poorly in your life? But when things are going well, you stop journaling. You should journal all the time, because it is going to be the thing that helps you move through difficult situations faster. It's going to help you process your emotions, and it is going to give you a safe space for you to express yourself. And so that brings us to the end of today's video. If you are watching this on YouTube, be sure to subscribe so that when I post new videos, you can be the first one to see it. If you are listening to this on the podcast, be sure to rate the podcast and leave a review, and I'll see you in the next one.